Hey everyone, finally got a haircut here, also known as Birthday Dinosaur, here with my spoiler review of The Incredibles 2. Now this is part 2 of a two-part review, with the first video being linked probably in the description or somewhere you'll probably be able to find it. I'm new to this. With part 1 being all my thoughts in the movie, not regarding spoilers, and this video being all my thoughts in the movie regarding spoilers. And so now, without further ado, spoilers. So the villain is we live in a society. But to be fair, I think they handled his motivations pretty well, all things considered. I expected it to be more like, ooh, screens are bad and they'll hypnotize you, better look away and read a book. But even though all of Screenslaver's motivations were just kind of thrown in there, I really liked how he was more against simulated comfort than just screens. But then what I expected was going to happen, happened. And what everyone else expected is going to happen, happened. The girl from Megamind was the real villain. I think there's even a line in the movie where she just flat out says, "I'm just the genius behind the genius." Real subtle there, Brad boy, Birdman. And although Screenslaver's motivations extends to the girl from Megamind, I refuse to call her anything else. It seems like the main thing that motivated her was the death of her father, which is because her father wanted to call superheroes and wait for them instead of going to the safe room. So why didn't they just go to the safe room and call superheroes from there? Why would they even go to a safe room in the first place if the father just wanted superheroes to save him anyways? And how is, from the villain's perspective, waiting for the police to save you any different from waiting for superheroes to save you? Is she an anarchist? Does she not have insurance? Does she not pay her taxes to support anything? Is she against firemen? I also know I'm not the first person to point out that it's really dumb if your main motivation is to make superheroes illegal, so you make them legal even though they already are illegal, but it's still pretty dumb. Also, her character herself I didn't really care for. They do this thing in the movie where they like to pretend that Elastigirl and Megamind Girl are actually super best friends and have the best chemistry, but it's very clunky. And the whole time I'm thinking, please stop, this is awful. I hate this. Why are you wasting my time? Why are you trying to convince us that they're friends? And what's also frustrating is that all that wasted time, which I think could have gone to developing the character of Void, ultimately has no real effect on the plot. Normally in a movie, if your villain has this great friendship with one of the main characters, and make the villain feel conflicted in its actions. But when she reveals herself as Screenslaver, she mentions that it's just kind of a shame that they're friends, and she thinks they could have gotten along, but you know, she's a superhero. And she hates supers. What you have is a passionless villain. She's doing what she thinks is right, but it's so boring. I feel like a lot of people nowadays think the key to having a really good villain is a one that believes that they're the hero, but that doesn't mean you have a good character. As far as what she's doing, there is zero emotional stakes, aside from no longer being able to drink wine with Elastigirl for fun. Also, her being passionless in her actions could be interesting if it was juxtaposed with a horrendous act that she's trying to accomplish. So let's compare Megamind Girl to a villain that is similar in this regard, Thanos. Although Thanos is clearly a villain that's full of emotional turmoil, for the most part, he seems to carry out his actions, which is genocide, as being just what he has to do. But that juxtaposition between him thinking it's just business and him committing the worst crime and the worst thing that could have ever happened in the entire universe makes things interesting. But Megamind Girl's whole agenda isn't necessarily villainous. She's not trying to kill anyone. And within this universe, her whole idea is a political standpoint. It would be like if in The Incredibles 3, the villain's whole objective is to make sure straws are no longer banned. Also, I get why from a screenwriting perspective, Elastigirl has to be the person to go take in and fight Megamind Girl, because that completes her arc, and then like she completes her mission in the movie, and it helps us show the whole Power family that they've grown to accept what needs to be done and how they can't just take the spotlight all the time. Which, like I've said, we've already learned this earlier in the movie because we saw them grow, but the movie decides to just prove it to us again, thus wasting our time. But Dash could have saved her. Dash could have saved her and then had enough time to come back and help stop the boat from crashing. I know I said earlier that no one forgets their superpowers, but that's one time they do. Like I said earlier, I like Dash in this movie, but he doesn't really have an arc in this movie, aside from the same arc he had in the first movie, which is stop being a dip.
How are you doing that with your mouth?
Never mind how I'm doing it.
But he was fine. I mean, he was funny. I don't really find him annoying. But Violet, however, I think is very good in this movie. I think she's better than she was in the first Incredibles. In the first Incredibles, even though you understand where she's coming from, she is borderline annoying and practically useless. But in this movie, we're left with the more confident Violet that we saw at the end of the first movie. So she becomes a lot more likable, endearing character in this movie, who is also much more in control of her powers. And although I do like her whole subplot, and her story and her arc, it doesn't really have much to do with the rest of the movie, which then again ties into the larger problem where everyone has all their issues solved at the end of the second act, and then in the third act, it's just, you know, they just gotta stop a big thing, and then they prove to us, the audience, that they have grown as characters, which we've already learned because we saw them grow. So it's a waste of time. So it only exists to finish up the central conflict, which they seem to just put on hold until this point in the movie. This is why I don't like the trend of having villain twists, because usually they're predictable. Or even when they're unpredictable, like in Frozen, they only exist to pull the rug underneath you without actually making the movie better. It's the equivalent of a jump scare. You get it at a reaction out of the audience, but is it good? Is it earned? I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but I think that a much better plot twist in a children's movie is in the Lego movie, because you don't see it coming, and it changes your whole perspective on the movie itself, and gives the story a whole new meaning. Finishing up my thoughts on the characters, I liked Jack a lot. He obviously has a much larger role in this movie, which I thought was fun. Edna in this movie is the exact same as Edna in the last movie, which I think is great. She works great in small scenes. And I really like their relationship, where Edna's this cranky old artist that wants nothing to do with children until she sees Jack as a source of inspiration for her, and thus they become best friends. Frozone's great in this movie. He's a cool guy with cool powers. He's great. Samuel L. Jackson does a great job, and he's cool. I'd like to see more Frozone in the future, when we see 9 more of these movies. Overall, there's a lot to like about The Incredibles 2, but there's also a fair amount to dislike. But most of it is just kind of there. Standing. Menacingly. This movie made me think about sequels that are both warranted and unwarranted at the same time, as in The Incredibles totally leaves itself open for a sequel. So in that sense, it's warranted. But in another sense, that movie really said everything it needed to say. I mean, maybe you could have had a bigger commentary about superheroes today in this current climate with how big they are, but everything it needed to do, or everything it really, once again, had to say, was done in the first movie. So you're left with a movie that just kind of feels a little hollow, and it fails to overcome its biggest challenge, being on par with the first movie. I genuinely believe that if there was no Incredibles 1 and The Incredibles 2 is a whole new original story, we'd be a lot more positive about it. We'd probably look at it and wish that a lot of live-action superhero movies went in the same direction as this movie. More character-focused, better action. But the thing is, that original movie exists. It does a lot of things that this movie does, but better. It's more narratively tight. It has more things to say conceptually. The dialogue is better. The characters all around are better. So this movie really can barely justify its own existence. The Incredibles 2 is a 6 out of 10. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching another Birthday Dinosaur video. Please leave a like, not because you actually like this video. Leave a comment down below. It doesn't have to be related, could be political discourse. And hit that subscribe button. And if you really like this video, then please donate to my Patreon, should be listed in the description below. Check out the Birth the Dinosaur website for all sorts of content, links to my video content in there, written reviews, all sorts of great stuff on there. And the schedule's gonna be a bit sporadic. Not sure if you guys know, but my plan was to try to post, or at least upload something weekly. And I've been really busy just because of travel and jet lag and whatever. And so that's why this video is late. And there should be something coming up soon, because I want to stay on track. But I just want to let you guys know about that. And